You are now live on air.
Hello, folks. Were you wondering what was going on? Did you think maybe we weren't going to make it? I don't know. Figured, hey, always keep them guessing. No, we, honestly, folks, we got tied up there for a few minutes, celebrating over an interesting find. And, honestly, just kind of lost a little bit of track of time. Wasn't anything real major. Fashionably late. We're, I'm gonna say a minute or two late, something like that. That's not too bad, right? But here we are. We are live once again. You are listening to Beyond Sight and Sound. I am your host, Josh Kimmel, a.k.a. Treasure Seeker. Looks like our bars are bouncing. We're broadcasting. I'm already starting to see some people popping into the chat. And long awaited, very overdue, and we appreciate everyone's patience. It's time for the Vicksburg special. Here, tonight, Saturday, January 31st? Took us a few weeks to get it around and get it to you, but you'll hear everything tonight. I will be accompanied by the MISS+LOU RELIC KREWE members, some of them. Kevin Strahan's in the house, John Deville, Mr. Chris Engel, and the Dirt Bandit, Kenny Moore. And we've got quite a show. I'm sure there's going to be some interesting information. And, Super Bowl's coming up tomorrow. So tonight, sit back, grab a beverage, and listen to the stories of the history. So without further ado, we should probably get rolling with this, because I know these guys have been chomping at the bit for a while to get this information out. We've got a storm moving in here in my area that's actually caused a couple of small brownouts tonight, so hopefully we don't have an issue with the internet. But with that in mind, we want to get moving with it. So, Kenny, Chris, Kevin, John, how's it going, guys?
Awesome, man.
Great,
Glad to be here.
That is awesome that we can finally get this show out, because those were some nice finds that were made that day. And speaking of the finds that were made, stay tuned, folks. Make sure you're listening here towards the end of the show. We'll probably take some callers and do a random giveaway for some authentic Vicksburg mini balls. So, I guess for those who may not quite be so well versed in the siege of Vicksburg and that period of the Civil War, would one of you guys like to go ahead and just take the floor and kind of fill everybody in, get them up to speed on the history behind it?
Go ahead, Kevin.
No, one of y'all go ahead and do it. I'll just interject every once in a while.
All right. 1863 would be the year, and really, the thing about it is up where I'm at. The Battle of Shiloh kind of had a lot to do with it, because it opened the door for what was the onslaught further south, as I like to call it. You know, they traveled down the Mississippi. They had their sights set on Vicksburg, and that's where they ended up. There's a lot of things that happen there that's not even registered. There's a lot of skirmishes there that's not talked about very much. There's a lot of stuff that goes with it.
But they actually tried to fight their way in a couple of times before they resorted to the siege and just waiting them out, correct?
Well, they did. And it was a strategic point. It was a very strategic point because they come at them from different directions. And they swung around, they hit around Jackson, they come from behind Jackson, they come through the river, and then ultimately it ended with the Union starving out, basically, the Confederates. You know, it was in May and June of 1863, and the Confederates were led by Lieutenant John Pemberton, I believe was his name. I believe it's Pemberton. I hope I didn't ruin that, but if I'm correct, that was on July the 4th. Vicksburg surrendered after prolonged siege operations there. But when you do all that research and then you step onto it and kind of look around, you read some of the history. But when I actually got in there walking on that land, I was like, how in the world did a battle occur here? I mean,
oh yeah, this is rough terrain.
It's amazing. Let's put it this way. Whoever had the high point definitely had the advantage, which is in most cases anywhere. But
right, that's just good battle strategy.
Yeah, actually, Josh and Kenny, where we were hunting, actually where Kenny was actually in the hardest terrain of the entire area that we hunted in. And Chickasaw Bayou happened right below where Kenny and them were. And the reason why Grant had to leave Chickasaw Bayou is because apparently, you know, there was gun placements where Kenny and them were, and Grant just couldn't get anywhere near the city. So he actually retreated, went around, and then was going to try to build a canal because he couldn't get their ships past Vicksburg. Because Vicksburg was so heavily fortified, they couldn't get a ship by there. And he tried to work the Grand Canal. It didn't work. I mean, he had so many soldiers dying of, a lot of people didn't know, soldiers died of diarrhea back then. They were dying of diarrhea and exhaustion. And that's when he left and went down, to Port Gibson from the Vicksburg area, and then worked his way up to where they were. So actually where Kenny and Chris was doing their main hunting, the reason why those gun placements were there was because you can ask Kenny how much trouble they had just getting there. You can imagine troops traveling up to 10 miles a day or trying to get across all of the cannon fire and then go to where Kenny and them were. It's almost impossible to get there unless you come from the backside, and the backside is actually the Confederates had all that.
Right, and that was actually, it was Joseph E. Johnston's group that had that pin. He had to push Johnson all the way back, and it wasn't easy to do. And actually, the Confederates for months or weeks were just, you know, popping him clean off. They would make advances, but the Confederates would push him back and forth is what it was. And then, of course, in the late April of 1863, Grant undertook a new and bold campaign, which pretty much ended it.
Right. And even at that, it took, I mean, we're talking weeks, 6 weeks or so?
6 weeks. Took 6 weeks, and they starved them out. I mean, they just cut off the supply lines, which is obviously a strategic move in any battle, but here it was important because in the beginning, if you looked at everything, there was no way the Confederates were going to lose this battle. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as brilliant as Robert E. Lee was, Grant had better under him. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, took a little more better advantage of the situation. The name escapes me right offhand, but if I remember correctly, during that siege, which also probably helped to kind of speed things up, there had been other skirmishes going on where the troops were actually retreating into Vicksburg. Which
go ahead.
You know, kind of, that's making the population higher. And, you know, it's not as easy to wait things out as long. Once you've got more people concentrated into that area like that, you're going to run out of supplies faster.
Well, they had skirmishes. The Federals, you know, assaulted the rebel stronghold on the 19th and 22nd of May. So, I mean, the end didn't come until the end of April. So there's an amount of time there where it was push back, push up, and then, of course, the Union, when they took Champion Hill, and I believe it was the Big Black Bridge. Is that right, Kevin? The Big Black Bridge, I believe is what I was reading on.
The Big Black River Bridge.
Right. Yeah, when they took that Champion Hill, made a statement, and I'm still amazed. You know, you can go on and on about the story of this battle, and you can talk all you want, you can read on it, you can do all the research you can do, but when you step into that place and you just have a moment of silence, you sit down, you scan it. That's what I do. I like scanning, and I'll just look around, and I'm thinking, hearing those cannons go off, you're on that high point. Well, they're shooting at you too.
Right.
So that had to be really intense. I just couldn't imagine it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like you were saying, you can read about it and everything, but once you actually get in there, you know, personal one-on-one with the terrain, and actually see the surroundings that these troops were dealing with, it's like, man, you know, well, like you had said, there was a battle went on here. How?
Well, this is the impact. Let's fast forward for a second and touch in between after. Casualty figures, including the officers and men, surrendered is 29,491. That's a lot of people. I mean,
that is an awful lot of people. Well, that would have been in with the casualties and everything. You figure the number of people that actually gave their lives to try and overcome this battle and everything, as well as the number of injuries that were made, there had to have been some fairly large field hospitals there in Vicksburg at the time.
I would imagine, yes.
Oh yeah, there was. Honestly, they don't have a count of how many field hospitals there were in and around Vicksburg. There were so many. There was churches, houses. I mean, everything from a little small plantation home that you know, maybe a one-room church.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because at that point, they're going to commandeer whatever they can to have enough shelter to deal with this.
Well, you know, and another piece of this battle that probably don't get enough credit is when they came into Vicksburg, they came in two different places, because the only way that they could get Joseph Johnson's, you know, regiment to fall back was to hit him from the other direction, and they actually came in at Bruinsburg, I believe is what it's called, Bruinsburg, Mississippi, which is right below Vicksburg. That little spot there played a huge role and winning that battle, and a lot of people don't know that unless they really dig in it.
Definitely a major piece of history, and a very strategic spot for the war. If I remember right, Lincoln himself had said that Vicksburg was the key. That's why they were so big on it. They had to get Vicksburg. It was going to be a very big deciding factor.
Right. I think his exact words were, victory means Vicksburg.
Oh, there you go.
And that was mainly because they couldn't get any supply ships to New Orleans and to Port Hudson. You know, they couldn't get anything down there to supply their people down there. And Vicksburg was a choking point. And what happened was eventually that they figured out Vicksburg is so high up on bluffs, and Louisiana is just across the river, which is perfectly flat. They realized that if they got close to the bank, or close to the cliff of Vicksburg, and they ran their ships that close that the cannons can't aim down far enough to hit them. And that's what really helped them get their ships past to actually, because, they could get to New Orleans, but they had to go so far out of the way that it just, it would take forever for them to get there. So if we would have won, if the South would have won Vicksburg, then there's no telling what would have happened, because you've got they stopped all the supply ships from getting to places like Port Hudson, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and once they took over Vicksburg, it was done. They could get all the supply ships they wanted because there was nowhere to stop them, and that's the reason why Abraham Lincoln said it was the key to victory, was because of that right there. They just they outsmarted us and took Vicksburg, and that's pretty much ended the war right there.
It's basically
Kevin,
a commercial hub in a sense.
well, it was, but the research will also tell you that Grant, initially they were battling the opposition, but they were met with such force and such loss of life as when he made the decision to actually invade and take over the city, because he even wrote that taking the city would create and avoid further loss of life. Soldiers and civilians alike endured all of that, and it was 47 days before the surrender of Pemberton's forces on July the 4th, 1863. So he made that decision to go on in there and just, take care of the city issue part, because he thought by doing that and ending the war quicker, or ending that particular battle quicker, it would save lives. That's what's in the research, and that's what's from his words.
And that's a good point, too, when we talk about situations like this, these battles and sieges and skirmishes. We've got to understand, too, that not only are these, we're dealing with the soldiers, too, but there were civilians that they're just trying to live life, and they're getting caught up in the mix.
Absolutely. I mean, just imagine, you're living life. You probably got the word. I mean, there's people on the river. They fish. They do whatever. They know a war is going on. They know Shiloh just fell, and that was a red alert right there. That would be like us here with another country coming in, and we heard on the news that New York's been invaded. Well, who's next?
Right.
So they've got to be on alert anyway. And then the first fisherman that comes in, or hunter, or whatever, comes in and says he sees ironclads or ships or whatever, you can imagine that it got pretty tense.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a bit of a panic for the civilians, trying to grab what personal belongings they could and just get out of the way of things.
Correct.
Well then, so Kevin and John kind of coordinated this hunt, correct?
Yes.
Set this all up.
Yes.
And go ahead.
What happened was, I'm actually friends with Rick that runs the battlefield, Siege of Vicksburg battlefield. He actually runs the entire operation. And we talk back and forth, and anytime I'm in the area, I call him as a service, and just to keep a good name, I call him and say, hey, Mr. Rick, this is where I'm going to be around the property. It's not going to be on, the federal property, but this is where I'm going to be in case you get any phone calls. This is where I am. If you'd like to contact me, you just call me on my cell phone, and we can, and I can meet up with you. So I always told him where I was at all times. So one day I was talking to him, and I told Mr. Rick, out of all these places around the area, what would be a good place to hunt? And he's like, you know what, Kevin? And he pulls out a map and a pen, and he starts circling places. He said, this would be a good place to hunt because this is what happened. And he went over everything that happened in the area. And he circled another place. He goes, here, this is what happened in this area. This is who is in this area. And I was like, well, oh, man, that's great. He just was giving me all kinds of information that I would have had to do research to find out, but he was just giving it to me. So,
right. And I'm sure probably making sure that you're well aware of where your boundaries are, too.
Yeah, and he told me, he said, look, we have boundaries here. They're going to be this color. But he knew I wasn't going to trespass, because he would be dumb enough to call the man that runs that much land and they all have guns, who would be dumb enough to call and say, hey, this is where I'm going to be, and then you go trespassing? That would just be the stupidest thing in the world.
Right.
So that's why he knew he...
Yeah, let me add, those are M16s, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, seen those in person.
Yeah, and he, and, you know, so in order to tell them that, you know, they know they can trust you, and, you know, we would call, let them know where we're going to be. So I started asking around. I found out who owned the property. Well, I went up to him and asked him if we could metal detect there, and he told me no. And I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, well, I let somebody metal detect here one time, and I went outside, and there was holes all in my yard. And he said, right. I shut it down right then and told him to leave. So I told him, I said, look, I can really get my shovel out of the truck. I can show you that those were amateurs that were just coming in, didn't know what they were doing. I said, they didn't respect you or your property. I said, now, me and my guys, I said, the reason why I have these guys as friends is because they will respect your property. And I said, I can show you how we would extract any relic from the ground, and you won't even know we were there. And he looked at me for a minute, and I said, you have my word. You will not see that we've ever been there. We won't do any harm to the property. And he said, okay, I'll let you go. I was like, well, great. So I got his name and phone number, and I was like, do I need to call you anytime I come out? He goes, I own almost 500 acres. He said, you can come out anytime you want. You have my permission. You're the only one that has my permission. So if anybody calls me and says, hey, such and such is on the property, I know it's you. So he even told me the best place to go park. He said, you want to go to the back of the property? That's where the Civil War fort was. And I was like, you got a fort on your property? He said, yes, sir. Well, of course, I told Kenny that, and that's where Kenny and Chris went originally, because they want to go back in the area where the fort was, and that was the roughest terrain, and that's the reason why they had a fort back there, because you would have to come through the city and come through all the Confederates to even get to the fort, because the fort is pretty much like a peninsula. There was only one way to come in and one way to come off, and they knew it. So that's where they built their fort, and of course that's where that's where one of the best finds was found.
Which we will make sure to get into that, because I am sure that Chris has got his research on that. So we'll definitely get into that. And you got out there, you got permission, and you guys decided, hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna put together this hunt. And how long was this in the planning?
Well, I contacted John, and John had pretty much, we'd already had one group hunt, and there was a lot of people from Louisiana. So I told him I'd like to do a group hunt with quite a few people from Mississippi. We go to Vicksburg. So we talked, and we kept on talking on and off about, you know, when we were going to do it. And it was set in stone one time. It got canceled. I don't remember. I think either I was sick or my babysitter backed out something, and we had to actually reschedule it. And so the second time around, you know, we set it in stone. Said, all right, whether it rains, snows, or shines, this is when we're going to go. And I got it with John, and we talked to some of our friends, and actually great friends. I talked to Butch, and Butch ended up giving me a year subscription to American Digger magazine to give away at the hunt.
Nice.
Yeah, which was great. My friend Blake at Kelly Co. said, hey, I'm going to send you some stuff to give away. I was like, okay, cool. So I got a huge package in from him for stuff to give away. And Mr. Kenny had some stuff that he gave away. And we just decided we were going to, you know, the whole giveaways were not, they were just for fun. I wanted to show the appreciation. We have a MISS+LOU Relic Krewe Facebook page. If you're from Mississippi or Louisiana, you come on and you just see what everybody's finding and where they're hunting. And I just wanted to show everybody thanks. You know, thanks for driving this far, hanging out with us. And, you know, I want to meet, you know, Chris, and, you know, I've talked back and forth with Kenny for a while about hunting together. And we're both from Mississippi, but he's from the top right-hand corner, and I'm in the middle of Mississippi, which is about almost 6 hours away.
Right.
So we decided, hey, let's get together, and I talked to John, and John was like, yeah, all right, let's do it. So, Chicago Ron, actually, I've been talking back and forth with him about Joe Lee and trying to help
Right.
out with him. And he sent me some stuff to give away and wished us luck. And Mr. Butch wished us luck and said, I hope y'all find a lot. And we did. And it was a great time. But I had more fun setting the hunt up, just talking back and forth with John daily, and then actually just hanging out with these guys. I had more fun hanging out with them and eating and hanging out in the hotel room than I did hunting with them. I mean, it was a blast just, meeting everybody and their personalities. And it's cool because we all had the same passion, and we all wanted to dig relics. Me, I kind of go a little overboard. I was more worried about other people finding relics than me, because I want to make sure that, these guys had a good time, and because they were all great guys, and they were all very passionate. They were all fired up, and it's kind of hard to be around Kenny and not get fired up, because, he does his research. And
That's right. He does have an energy about him.
Hey,
and me and John just decided this is what we're going to do. And look, the guys treated me and John great. They wouldn't let us buy our own dinner. They insisted that they pay for the dinner for us. And we fought them a little bit, but we didn't actually try to knock them down and fight them off. It was just, they were showing their appreciation to us sitting down and doing this for them. And me and John still talk about it. We still, we're still going to plan another big trip where we want to get together with the guys again and have another weekend where we could just hang out. And it's not about the finds, it's about the camaraderie and just sitting around talking about what you found in the past. But mainly, we kind of concentrated on what we're going to find in Vicksburg. And
Right.
because it's an exciting place. I mean, you're standing. I mean, we were literally a foot from the battlefield, and almost all everywhere we went, you're almost a foot from the battlefield. We hunted right on the edge of the federal battlefield, and the finds that came out were amazing. Some guys, actually, I'll let Kenny and John talk about this, but some guys came out of the woods with awesome finds, and they thought they were junk. But that's the reason why you bring your junk out of the woods with you, because
That's
they
right.
found out
Never
that
throw anything away.
they had some pretty neat finds. And I don't know if Kenny and John if they want to elaborate on it. I'm going to let them go ahead and do it. But those are some great finds they found, and they didn't even know what they had. So, Kenny, if you and John want to talk about those finds.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into some of this because, yes, it is a gathering of like-minded individuals sharing a passion and an interest in what they enjoy. And it is the camaraderie, the fellowship, trading stories, comparing, showing off finds and seeing what everybody had found. But there were some very nice finds made, and some of these finds came out of some very tough terrain to try and traverse. So, you guys want to get into that. Let's start getting into some of these finds that were made for the folk.
There was one find in particular that I remember. It was something that had happened. We had two guys there, Mike and Mark Mangum.
The Twin Diggers.
Yeah, Twin Diggers.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is a real memorable moment for me because I'm a button guy, okay, and I love digging buttons. And I remember this is the second day, and they hadn't found anything yet. And I was thinking with me and another friend of mine, a relic hunter, a guy named John Kelly. We had been hunting the day before and made a few finds, I think a button and a few bullets the first day. We brought several people back. It was the second day, and I kind of put those guys in the right direction to make some finds. And it's been an hour or two, I found a couple bullets and a button or two or something. I come across this area where they had been earlier, and I find this hole. I check other people's holes just for the sake of checking them.
Oh, yeah.
I got a good signal. Man, I went down with my pinpointer, and it was on top of the ground. It was still out of the plug. There's a little dirt not in the plug. There it lay, a General Service Eagle button. And neither one of those guys had found much at all in the past, And man, it was a hard pill for me to swallow. But I'm sitting there thinking about those guys and what I'd like somebody to do for me if I'd made that mistake. So I went and got the two. I didn't know which one of them it was, so I asked them who had been digging in that area. And I brought him back over there, and he told me, yeah, I remember digging that hole, and there's like iron or something in the bottom of the hole. And, you know, I thought that was all it was. And I reached my hand out to him and showed him what he had left there. And I gave him this sign, you know, it was a General Service Eagle button. And, man, it's a good feeling to give that to him. And knowing it was theirs in the first place, you know.
Right.
But, it was a rookie mistake, and you live and you learn, and it was an awesome hunt altogether. There's lots of other good finds, but that was one of the memorable moments.
Right, and that's very respectable of you. And if I remember right, the Twin Diggers, they haven't necessarily been involved with the hobby all that long, have they?
No, not long at all.
So that was probably a really big deal for them to have realized that they made the find, but not only to have realized that they had made the find, but to see the integrity of the people that they were hunting with as well, with you returning that find to him.
Right.
Well, you know, let me add something there. You know what the saying is? There's two types. There's givers and there's takers, and we know which one John is.
I think anyone that was out there with us would have done the same thing, though.
They
Absolutely.
were very, very appreciative of that. They, you know, they just couldn't believe it because they said, I just don't know anybody else that would have done that. They would have picked it up and said, look what I found, you know. But, John, do you remember a couple of the iron relics that were found that people thought was nothing?
Oh, yeah, there was, what was one of them? One of them ended up being a
saddle band.
Wasn't it?
A saddle band?
Kenny? I don't remember that one. Which one was that, Kenny?
One of the Twin Diggers dug it, and they didn't know what it was, but it was a saddle band, the whole complete front of it.
Yeah. I remember now. I remember, was it Kevin Hume who found that Civil War era drill bit?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
now that had to have been interesting. Yeah. I don't think I noticed that in the video.
Yes, and listen, everyone is immune to not checking your area thoroughly, because I'll be the first to admit, I was standing very close having a conversation with Kevin Hume next to a cliff. And I mean, when you looked off of it, it's like, okay, let's step back a minute. But we're standing there, and I walk off, and it probably wasn't 10 minutes later, he finds a hat badge.
Oh yeah, that was a nice find.
It was. Now, it was more of a brooch badge. I mean, when I looked at it, it looks like that it was the early, be honest with you, it looked like a Confederate badge. I just didn't see much in the Union stuff that was too much like it, but I did find some stuff. It had the cloth, still some cloth around the edges of it. But you couldn't tell what color it was. I mean, you know how long it's been laying there. For cloth at all to survive is just
that's amazing.
Freaked me out. But what a great find, and it was stuck right in the edge where if you step one more step, you'd have fell anyway. That's the reason I think a lot of those areas in there was probably still there and not falling in at the time.
Right. Now, has anyone been able to confirm one way or the other if it was Confederate?
No.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't heard anything.
Okay. Well, never hurts to check.
That's my opinion. I mean, that was just my opinion from some of the pins and brooches that I've seen in my books, and you can Google stuff now. That's pretty easy, but it's still hard to find that real early stuff. But it looked Confederate to me how it was made. And
so that the Twin Diggers, they definitely took some good memories back from the hunt, as well as some nice finds too, and it sounds like Kevin Hume did as well. If he found that badge there, that hat badge.
Yeah, he found also, if I'm not mistaken, about a 6 or 7 inch lead spike or a lead bar. They were used, to hold tents down, but the original use for those bars of lead obviously was to melt into bullets.
Right, to cast new bullets right there at the campsite.
Correct.
Yeah, wasn't there some other iron relics found that the guys didn't know what they were?
I can't remember. I know there was an entrenchment tool.
I think there was a rifle tool too. Didn't Kevin Hume find one of those?
Yeah, he found a rifle tool. I found an entrenchment. I found a whole shovel bottom in a hole.
Yeah.
And actually, it was funny because it was like, what the heck, man? You know, I had a signal, but it kept coming iron. I'm like, okay, where I'm at, you got to dig it all. I pulled out the whole bottom of the entrenchment to it, the whole shovel. And I'm like, what? And it's right by the breastworks. I mean, it's right there. So you just know that was one of the shovels that created that breastwork that you're by. I mean, if that ain't humbling, I don't know what is.
Right.
So, you know, it's set that there. And out of the same hole, I pull out I don't know, it looked like a cannon hitch, didn't it, Chris?
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
It looked like a cannon hitch. So I'm like, good gravy, man. What's all in this hole? This is one hole, I might add you. It's about 1.5 feet wide by this point. So I'm still digging. And lo and behold, at the very bottom was a Maynard bullet, the very original signal that I had to begin with. So I was like, all right, man. So it was quite the interesting hole.
And Chris was probably standing there the whole time watching, going, "Man, when is this thing going to end?"
No, I tell you what,
he was digging.
I was having a good time filming it because I think to myself, keep digging, keep digging. There's more to go. There's more to go, and it was awesome.
It was
really what happened was Chris was standing there going, "Man, he finds all the good stuff. I'm not gonna find nothing." That's what he said originally, I bet. Until he found what he found. And then under his breath, he was like, "Ha, gotcha, Kenny."
Yeah, no, no. I mean, you would think, but no, we were so intertwined and connected to the same mode. It was ridiculous. It was like, and I don't mean to sound crazy or anything, but we were in a zone. You know, you guys get out there and you kind of get that. You find a find, you find two, you find three, and you're kind of in that zone. The phone don't matter, nothing else matters. You're just in that. You're in that what I call tone mode.
Right.
And you know, as soon as something clicked with him or I, it was immediately, hey, got something, you know, and it was over there. We was filming it. And we were celebrating the finds together. And it was like, what was weird, it was like back and forth. I mean, he'd find it, I'd find it, he'd find it, I'd find it. And then a couple of times we'd both be on something at the same time. The other hoe would have to be on standby. And
just kind of neck and neck, so to speak.
It was, and the whole time we were going, man, I know them guys got to be finding stuff too, because at the same time, we wanted, you know, we were having a good time. I was like, man, I know they, and sure enough, I talked to Kevin, and Kevin said, yeah, they're finding stuff too. And I was like, all right, man, this is great. It was just a great hunt, man.
Oh yeah.
But Josh, just to show you that there was no egos out of all of us hunting. It was great because I'm gonna tell you a scenario that happened, and I'm gonna tell you what kind of type of person John is. I walk up to John and I say, and now you got to remember, nobody's in charge. We're all adults. I walked up and said, "John, I got a job for you tomorrow." He goes, "What you got?" I said, "I want you to take the twin diggers and make sure they find something." He said, "No problem." You know, there was no, "Hey man, you can't tell me what to do," or "Hey, you're not the boss around here." You know, it was none of that.
Leave me be. I'm hunting. I'm doing my thing.
Exactly. He knew why I wanted him to do that, because he knew that it was important for everybody to enjoy themselves and find something, and that's what he did. All he said was, "Okay." You know, it was no animosity between anybody. We didn't care who found the most of what. All we cared about was what we found and talked about the history, and there was absolutely no egos at all. I mean, very rarely do you find that many, 9 guys you can stick together that really have never been together and not have testosterone just flying off the handle or "Hey, why don't you tell me where you found this?" Everybody was open. Everybody was like, "Hey, this is what we're finding. This is what we're finding. And if you want to come find something tomorrow, come over here with us."
Right, and it sounds like everyone was happy to stand around and talk and happy for the finds that each other had made. It's not like they had to make the best find. Everyone was tickled with what they were seeing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And you know what was really fun, Kevin? That night after the first day, which I call recon day, is, we're sitting there and it's like, all right, it's time. We've ate, everything's time. Let's get out the maps. Let's fire up the laptop. And pretty much John and several others kind of had an idea of where they kind of wanted to go, I believe. And Chris and I kind of had an idea. And so, it's hard to get that many people in one spot. So obviously you're going to kind of split up and stuff like that. That's the reason it's a crew. Mm-hmm. And so we did research together, but we also researched where pretty much we thought we were going to end up at. I had a feeling, I know John did as well, and Paul and them guys, but I had a feeling, something changed from the first day we were there, because our entry to the place was kind of jeopardized because we didn't know where exactly a property line was. And rather than take a chance and break the law, I looked at Chris and says, we're hiking.
Right.
And are you up for it?
We're going to do it the right way.
Right. And Chris was like, yeah, I'm on it. So we were on it. And little did I know, it was going to be the hike. And but
serious cliff involved there.
Oh, man. I mean, it was Jurassic Park, baby. We got down to some of that stuff, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But, man, it's just planning. And to watch it unfold, it was like a well-coached football team before a game and going in and executing. It's probably it was the best hunt I'll say I've ever been on with a group of people, outstanding people that I met that day.
Yeah, it seemed like everything went smoothly, and everybody, I mean, like you said, everyone kind of split off, but you were all operating as a good, cohesive group.
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, after the first day, no, I was skunked. I didn't find anything the first day. The second day, Chris and Kenny planned on going back to where they thought that they had the best chance of finding some nice relics. And John was going back with the rest of the guys to another spot, because they started just figuring out where some good things might be. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go over here. And everybody was like, why are you going over there? I'm like, well, I'm going to try to find a new spot. So I went ahead, and they went to their two spots that they thought was going to produce. And I just went to a new spot and said, all right, because, I mean, you're looking at 300 to 500 acres. I don't remember how many acres the guy actually owns, but you're looking at 9 people. It would take forever to cover that much land. So I said, all right, I'm going to drive over here and cover this part. So I went and covered a couple of acres by myself and nothing. I mean, it got to the point where I was like, all right, I'm going to spend half a day and literally hadn't found anything. So I called John up, and John's like, man, you need to come over here. We're finding, we've done found it. We found where a lot of relics are. So, by the time I get over there, Kenny calls me. Kenny said, Kevin, we're on it. We're on it. We're finding stuff. I'm like, great.
So the reports are coming in.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, John and them are killing it over here too. So, but by the time I got over there, they had done just murdered it. I mean, they had just filled up all kinds of fine relics. And I probably should have went over there with them that morning. But with us having that many people in one spot, I want to try to find another spot in case a couple of them want to branch out and get away from because there was 6 people was hunting in one area, and then Chris and Kenny was in another area, and then I was in an area by myself. But
right,
I had to go ahead and give it up. John had located all the good stuff, so I had to go over there and bum off him. And I finally got over there and found the button, and was thrilled to death because, like I said, I hadn't found anything. And, John and them were over there just popping bullet after button. I mean, we had one guy that had one guy found 7 buttons by himself. And I'm like, man, I need to get on this action. So I had to go over there with them, and that's how we do things when we go hunting together. If I start finding things, then I call up John and say, John, you might want to come over here. I'm finding stuff. And vice versa. And that's how we all work together. We don't care if you come over and find bullets right next to where I'm finding bullets. We just want to make sure everybody finds relics, even if we're going coin shooting. If I start finding a lot of coins, I'm going to call my buddies up and say, hey, I'm finding them over here. That's just how we work. We take care of each other.
Right. Nothing wrong with that.
I want to throw a shout out there to Digging Deep South, L.A., Paul, because he would be the 7-button man of that day.
Nice.
And you can check it out. His YouTube channel is Digging Deep South LA. His name's Paul. He runs a Fisher F70. And when I say runs an F70, he runs an F70. That man covers more ground than a soccer player in a soccer match. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
All right, and let me touch on another find, if you don't mind, real quick.
All right.
I'm just going to, because sooner or later the question may be asked. I'm going to go ahead and throw mine out there. I found buttons, bullets, just, a number of different things. But the most intriguing find that I found, when I looked at it, I was like, okay, I know it's lead. All right, it's got to be melted. Can't really quite figure out what they would have done with this until I kind of brushed it off and looked at it real good and got it back to the room. And what it turned out to be is they took a bullet, they melted it, and they stretched it out about 3 inches long, just about 2.5 inches. They carved it down to a point, and the back end of it still had the divot in it. It was still like the whole bullet, but then from that point, it just looked like a tornado is what it looked like, and it went down to a fine point, and at the very bottom of that point still had the ink stains. So what they did was they made a
lead
pen. They made a pen so they could write to their wife, their family, and whatever, and it just blew me away when I realized what I had in my hand.
Yeah, I mean, literally, now, to me, that would be a cool find. That would be just awesome.
I have found relics and good relics in my lifetime, but that piece right there just reached out and smacked me in the face. I ain't kidding you, man. I was like, wow.
Well, exactly, because that is truly a very personal item to find.
Yeah, and as soon as I was like, wow, how in the world am I going to see something that's going to top that? And 5 minutes later, here comes Mr. Chris. Kitty! And that's another story.
But yeah, that would, and you're right, that question would have been coming, because by the end of the show, I want to know what the most interesting finds were for everybody. I'm sure the listeners would like to know too. But speaking of the 7-button day, were any of those kind of rare, or what was the common find for the buttons that everybody was hitting? Were there any rare buttons pulled out, or any extremely nice condition buttons? Because I know some of them looked like they were in pretty good shape.
Well, on Paul's behalf, I can tell you he had some general service buttons. He had an Eagle Eye coat button, an Eagle Eye cuff button, and he had a Confederate flower button.
Nice.
So very outstanding. And then, John found a bunch of them too. And then a trifecta nickel spree he went on. That was just amazing to me as well. To find three nickels there and amongst that stuff. It was a hunt that you better treasure, because it doesn't happen, obviously, every time you go. So for everybody to pull out stuff like that, man, the stars were aligned. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Oh yeah, and not only were the finds made, but you've all walked away from this with memories that'll last a lifetime. No one can take that away. So you can't beat that at all. I mean, ultimately, yes, the finds, you'll find more. Maybe you find better, maybe not so much. But the friendships and the connections and the stories and memories and camaraderie, that's there to stay.
Absolutely.
You can't put a price on that. So
I was just going to say how good of a time I had. I mean, earlier this past year, I went to DIV. Had a great time there, met some great people, and this one actually, to me personally, I feel like I had just as good or even better of a time with these guys than I did at DIV. That's not taking anything away from DIV, because it's definitely an awesome trip. But for me, this little gathering of my people, our little group of people, was just outstanding. And
I agree with John.
It's just more memorable than DIV was. And Chris was at DIV.
Yeah, Chris was at DIV too.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I think, DIV was great, and I'm not going to take anything from it either. But for us to be at Vicksburg, and everybody kind of, first time meeting really, but
and for things to come together, the camaraderie, right.
The camaraderie, and everybody was there for one thing, and that was to go hunt and recover history. And I think we all did that. I know a while ago we were talking about who we're with and all, and I know Kenny and I were up on that bluff, and one thing I can say about that was every find that Kenny made or every find that I made, it was like we both made it, because Kenny said, hey, I got a good find here. So instead of Kenny trying to hold the camera and dig it, I held the camera for him and filmed it. If I found something, Kenny did the same thing for me. So there was that camaraderie there, and it was like, well, I found that same Maynard bullet that Kenny found because I was there. And
right,
that was
you have the experience as well.
Yes.
And you can tell from that video, too, that it didn't matter which one of you guys was finding it. You were both just as excited for the find.
Yeah, and it just didn't have to do with me and Kenny. It had to do with everybody that was hunting somebody. We all shared, or we all found that same find, even though it was that one person found it. The person that was with him or people that were with him, they found it too. So that was the biggest thing. It was a camaraderie. It was just an all-around, probably one of the best group hunts. You see so many of them on YouTube. I don't think they could compare to this one. There's just no way.
Well, and I know Kenny's even said himself, you know, he's thinking that he's very interested in seeing how DIV goes, because this hunt was just, you know, on the top of his list, basically, as one of the best.
I was excited about it when Kevin called me and said, it's a go, everything's good. And I looked at my wife, gave thumbs up, man. I was in full mode.
Going, I'm stoked, I'm ready to go. The bag's
I was, man, because I knew before I even left this house how good a time it was going to be. I wasn't worried about what I was finding or nothing like that. I've been hunting for quite a while. Lord willing, I'll be hunting more. But I knew the people I was fixing to meet was going to be cool as heck, man. And we got down there, and I got down there early, man. I just, I beat everybody else because I couldn't hold back anymore. I had to get on the road. And I got down there, man, I looked around the town, looked around Vicksburg, and soaked it in. And by the time they got there, I was already shaking because I had already been and looked at the cannons. I had been, going to this little town and getting lost a couple of times, having to call Strahan, hey, man, where am I at? And then, I found the room and stuff there, and when everybody got there, I was just thrilled, man. I was almost tired from being so excited. I ain't kidding you.
Yeah, I imagine when everybody showed up finally, that had to have been a bit of excitement because you guys are meeting each other for the first time, and probably real easy to spot because many of you have YouTube channels, where you see them and you're going, oh yeah, I know that's LA Gold, or yeah, there's KS Hollywood, or they're going, oh my God, it's Dirt Bandit.
Yeah, it was unmistakable. I knew who everybody was as soon as I walked out the door. Oh, Paul was actually, Kevin was there and he was in the middle of something in his trunk or something, and Paul got his little truck. Yeah, he come running over. He had a big grin on his face, like, all right, here we are, and we're rolling. He's quick. That guy's full of energy, and he was ready to go. He says, hey, it's Dirt Bandit, and I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. And I knew. And then John was there, and we hooked up and talked. It was crazy, man. It was. I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, definitely a good time. Anytime, and some of the hunters out there, some of the people listening, they may think, well, group hunts just aren't my thing, or whatever. But I'm telling you, if you guys get the chance to have an experience like that, even if it's on a small scale like this, there were 9 guys, you should still do it at least once for the experience. And it really is a good time.
It is. And I've been on some group hunts, but I've only been on one crew hunt so far, and let me tell you, there's a difference.
That's a good way to put it too. I mean, and I've done group hunts, I've done myself, I've done the competition hunt thing, and nothing against it, I'm not knocking it. It's just, it's not my cup of tea. It's not my thing. I prefer the personalism of the small group hunts like that. They're much more enjoyable to me. But either way, you should still do it.
this group, you know, we never really all necessarily were group hunters either until now. And I'm sure if this whole group, if I said, hey, I need some, we're gonna get together and go hunting, but we're gonna have to take 900 pull tabs off the property before we can keep anything, then they would all say, let's go, just because, you know, we like to hang out with each other.
Yeah,
but,
I was going to say, absolutely. They're going, hey, it's a chance to get together again. All right, let's rock.
Right. It's like John today. Yeah, we had a new member of our website, and he ended up it's a man and a woman that hunt together, and they ended up talking to John, and John invited them out to hunt with him today. And that's how we do things. We're not selfish. You know, we do have our spots that we don't take other people, because everybody has that one spot or that two spots. But, you know, John said, hey, come out and join us. And they came out and had a blast. And never met John before. They're new members to our website. They live in Louisiana. And, you know, it just seems like everybody that's on the MISS+LOU Relic Krewe that's on that Facebook page, they're not out for themselves. You know, we love to help each other. We love to invite each other. If I'm going hunting tomorrow and Ken finds out, all Ken's got to do is just show up. I don't have to invite him. He just say, hey, what time do I need to be there? Because, you know, we don't care about stepping on each other's toes, because we don't step on each other's toes. We take no offense to it. If like Chris lives in Texas, Chris could call up Kenny and say, hey man, why don't I drive up to your area one weekend and spend the weekend and we hunt together? Kenny's gonna say, okay, let's do it. They're not going to say, hey, do we need to let anybody know, or do we need to keep this a secret? That's not the group we are, you know. And you know, it would make me mad if Chris went there and found a bunch of stuff and didn't tell me. Yeah, I'd get mad about that. But would I get mad about him hunting with Kenny? Heck no. You know, go have fun, but just make sure you come back to the Facebook page, show us pictures of y'all hunting together, show us pictures of your finds, and tell us the story about how much fun you had. And that's the way we see things. You know, we all have an open invitation with each other.
And that's a good way to be. I mean,
it don't get much better than that, man.
That's right. I've even said many times here in the recent past that one of these days I'm going to have to make me a little trip down to Mississippi. And at the rate it's going, after hearing about some recent finds today, I may have to take a little side venture into Louisiana myself.
Well, we could do a 2-day hunt. You can hit Mississippi and Louisiana.
There you go.
Because you got to remember, you know, Mississippi and Louisiana, they're only parted by the Mississippi River. I mean, I'm literally. I used to be an hour away from John. Now I moved 2 hours away, so I'm 3 hours away from him now. But still, I can make a 3-hour trip, you know, and hunt. And Kenny's a little further away. We're going to plan on we're going to tag team him a little bit, get John to drive to me, and then me and John get together and drive up there and hunt with him one weekend. But that's how we're going to do things. We're going to get together 2, 3, maybe 4 times a year from now on and hunt together.
You might want to make sure to bring your bedrolls and packs, because you liable to be out by the fire with Kenny.
Amen.
I've got a tent that you could pull a H2 Hummer in. So I got a tent that'll sleep 10 of us easily. So that's not an issue.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm wanting to go now.
That's right. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going, well, what are we doing? Maybe we need to be out hunting. Of course, I've got anywhere from 6 to 14 inches fixing to drop on us tonight. Yeah, I still got to get on Don. I don't know. It must be behind that display light for your bliss tool. We got to get him on one of them coil heaters.
Yeah, I know. Got to get him in gear some way.
That's right. But, you know, he's being creative with the other things, so always got to make sure to give a shout out to our buddy Don with Detecting Doodads. Check out detectingdoodads.com. Good stuff.
Yeah. If you want to see a twisted mind, he looks like a perfectly normal man, but something went wrong. I don't know what went wrong in his head, but the man can he's like he's like a mad scientist. And, you know, he'll email you, like he'll say, hey, check this out. And you're like, you're a working man. You work 50-something hours a week. You go home and you're married, and how do you have time to come up with this weird stuff? And we figured it out. He just don't sleep.
Right.
He's up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah. I mean, ideas and innovation from concept to physical product. The guy is a genius. Something else.
And detecting doodads is exactly what he does. He makes little doodads that some of them, the reason why he calls them doodads is because they have no name. They're stuff that he invented. It's not like he's copied something and can make it for you. I mean, these things he invented, and there is no names for them.
Yeah, so these are truly custom pieces.
Yeah, detecting doodads fits him perfect because there is no names for these things, and he's got he makes things to display bullets, buckles. I mean, like I said, if you go check out Detecting Doodads and look at some of his YouTube videos, you would understand that the man's just not right in the head. I love him to death, but you've got to not be in your right mind to come up with some of this stuff. That, or he's just a genius. It's one of the two. We can't figure it out.
Try go hunting with him, Kevin.
I have. We were hunting, and we were hunting Port Gibson, and he lost his leash. And I'm like, well, Mr. Don, I'm going to go find it for you. He's like, no, don't worry about it. I'll buy it. So I was working one day, and I was coming to Port Gibson. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop. So I went out in the woods, and I'm wearing $100 dress shoes, pair of slacks, shirt and a tie, and I'm in the middle of a woods looking for a freaking lash digger that he left. And, I'm mud's all over my shoes. I'm scratching my shoes up walking through the woods, and I'm like, I'm going to find this thing. So I found it. I took a picture of it, and I said, hey, look what I found. And the first thing he typed back pretty quick was, I don't recognize it. Some dummy must have left that in the woods. It takes somebody stupid to lose their digger. And I'm like, yeah, that's yours. He goes, no, it's not. He said, I ordered another one. I ordered one that's on the way. I don't know what you're talking about. Some dummy lost that one. And so John didn't have one. So I said, well, I'm going to give it to John if you don't mind. He said, fine. So I give it to John, and it ends up back in Texas because Chris lost his, and John gave Chris Don's old one.
And then I lost, and then it got lost again up there in DIV, and John found it. So it's a digger that can't get lost.
Yeah.
Yep.
Keeps coming back. Nothing wrong with that.
That's either luck or a curse. So,
right.
Because, Chris, I think we've lost count of how many lashes he lost.
Either way, I mean, as long as it keeps coming back, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, that's why we wanted him to keep that one. Maybe he'd have a problem losing that one.
But let's get on here. I gotta know, when you guys were at the hotel, you're looking at the maps, you're bringing it up on Google, trying to decide where you're going. Did you have any idea, Chris, that the terrain that you were about to hike into with Kenny was going to be anything like it was?
Yeah, I did, because the day before, which was Saturday, I hiked into it, and actually got up to the spot Kenny and I were at. So I knew basically where it was. Well, we walked out of there and came back, and I told Kenny, I said, well, I know the way. And I pretty much did, so I was going, and somewhere I got my directions crossed. Well, good thing Kenny was there, but we went up and down ravines at, Kenny, 100 foot deep at least?
At least. In
near vertical.
Right.
And I tell you what, there was a hike in there, and we got down to the bottom of it, and Kenny says, that's where we need to go. I said, you sure? He said, that's where we need to go. Sure enough, we crawled up, and boom, there it was. There were those breastworks and everything. Yeah, I tell you, as old as I am, it took a lot out of me, but I tell you what, when Kenny said, you ready to do some detecting? I said, let's get after it, and that's when I jumped up and went.
Well, I tell you, you tackled it like a champ. You were very good with that.
I look back on it, and everybody says, well, if you had to do it over again, would you? I said, yeah. I'd go up and down those ravines with Kenny. Shoot, we had a good time.
Absolutely. No second thought, not even bat an eye.
Nope, not at all.
Just headlong into it. And when you guys hiked in there, this was, if I remember right, about a 2-hour hike in, Kenny?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Okay. So you guys had literally quite a hike ahead of you when you started out that morning.
It was interesting because there was obviously different routes to get there, but we had to take our route.
Right.
But we went in some places that it changed. I mean, you were in one place in the low areas before we got to where the hills started going up and the mountains started going up. It was kind of not swampy, but it was damp. The leaves were was already down and stuff, and it looked kind of cool. Where we were, you couldn't get there from here kind of feeling. So we would try the next entry and then the next. And finally, we went up this one draw. And, man, when we got down in there, I thought to myself, oh, God. And then I was like, I don't know about this because I really didn't at that point. So, but we had to push on. We crossed this one ravine, and there was like a V where you had two kind of mountains there, and there was a V in them. And through that V, I could see a really high spot. I mean, it was way up there, probably 250 foot at least.
Wow.
And I got through that V, and he says, hey, I'm coming right here. I'll go do it. And I said, wait, because it was kind of like a hole right where we needed to stand. So we had to go around that. And it looked like it would drop right off or crumble under your feet because most of that area looked like landslides to me. I looked at that one high spot, and I was just trying to look at it towards where the river was. I said, that's it right there, because I could just tell what got me on it was right at the point of that high spot. It was a little clear, and I remember the day before looking down at that clear spot. So I was like, that's got to be it right there. Sure enough, 2 hours later, we get to the top, and I saw that dig hole from yesterday, or the dig not a hole, but where we were.
Right.
And I was like, oh, what a relief that was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when you got up there then, because this is leading up to an interesting find that Chris made, how long were you guys up there before Chris ran across his memorable find?
Well, I'll tell you what we did. We sat down. I took a drink of water. He took a drink of water. We said a couple of words, and we were digging. I mean, we hiked for 2 hours, and we may have rested 10 minutes at the longest. That was it.
Well, yeah, there's relics to recover. We can't be sitting around.
Just my part in this. The first find that day, I mean, we wasn't there probably, after we rested, it was probably not even 10 minutes, not even 5 minutes. Chris was like, hey, so I went over there, and he found just a beautiful coat button right off the bat that set the tone of the day.
I know you've got that family issue going on there, Kenny. When you have to cut out, just go ahead, and I will be in contact with you about that giveaway.
Okay.
That
Sorry about having to do that. I don't have a choice, actually.
Right.
Family first, Kenny. Family first.
Yes, and we all hope that whatever that is goes as well as can be.
Well, let me go ahead and say a few things before I'm out of here then.
Absolutely.
Well, number one is to the listeners here. It is great to see this chat board. I haven't been chatting much because I've been kind of doing some other stuff at the same time. It's great to have this show back. By far the number one show on the internet as far as I'm concerned personally. Now, am I biased? Hell yes. Another thing is the great group of guys there, being Kevin and John, that brought me down there to meet Chris and everybody else. I will not forget it. I appreciate it. And you guys rock, man. You're a true, outstanding group of hunters with ethics. And that's outstanding. Chris, the experience you pulling that bar ribbon ladder badge out of the ground was probably the highlight pinnacle of my hunting career. Being there to enjoy that and
just
pull that out.
To be right there along and experience it.
And what was cool is, Chris has dug relics, but I knew he wasn't exactly sure. And there's always the shock part of it. When you pull something out, it's brass, and then you look at it, it's got little ringlets on it. That gets your attention. So he called,
and the realization starts to set in.
Right. So he handed it over, and I laid it there on my leg, which you'll see in the video, by the way. And I'm sitting there looking at that, and I'm like, holy shishkers, man. I was like, look at this, man. And I said, it's a bar ribbon badge, man. And I just couldn't believe it. And it had the little ringlets on it where one hangs under another one. And I was flipping over it, man. I was happy for him. I felt like I dug it myself, And then I said, you know what? these come in twos, threes, fours, and fives, man. I said, you got to be another one there somewhere. What a trip that would be. And I actually wanted to let him enjoy that find, so I kind of walked off to do what I was doing. I didn't even get to my hole. He goes, hey, I got a signal. I ran right back over there, camera running, and, man.
And then the dancing started.
Oh, the 4 inches from that hole. It wasn't 2 inches under the ground, man. He flipped that sucker over, and I just couldn't flip and believe it, man. I was like, holy crap.
We were sitting there laughing the whole time. Instead of being excited, we were laughing.
We were laughing. I was laughing so hard I couldn't help myself, man.
Oh, yeah, you could tell you were both very happy.
And it was just, I still think about it all the time. That video never gets old, Mr. Chris, Kevin, John, you guys. You watch that video, that could have been an episode, brother. Think about that. Not a video. Yeah. That we could have made an episode out of that hunt.
And like Chris says, he doesn't get tired of watching it. I've seen it a number of times myself. It's done very well.
Nice. Well, listen, man, it has been real. It's been nice. I'm glad we got this show out. I care about all of you. Until the next time.
Take care, Brother Kenny.
I'll catch you guys later.
All right. Our thoughts and support with you there. Hopefully it's nothing serious, Kenny.
All right, thanks.
We'll see you, buddy.
Kenny.
All right. Now, yes, Chris, you found your ladder badge, and that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we covered on here, is that you have actually done some research into this.
Yeah.
And you have been able to identify it to the state, I believe, that it even originated, correct?
Yeah, the regiment, yes.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and fill us in on your research real quick, and then we'll try to start wrapping things up.
All right. What was funny on the kind of quick background on it, yeah, when I first found that first one, and it had the two little ringlets on it and just a little small badge, the first thing I thought was it was a soldier's uniform, and you know how they had the badges like marksmanship badges, things like that. And I'm thinking, well, you know, it's probably Civil War because it's here. And I wasn't sure. That's when I called Kenny over, and of course Kenny filled me in on exactly what it was, and then John did the research and actually found out that it was a ladder badge.
Oh,
the two I found. So those guys helped me a lot on that. So I got to give these guys a lot of credit to begin the research.
To John and Kenny.
Yeah, to begin the research, that was the beginning. But anyway, I did some research on it and found out it was from the 50th Pennsylvania Regiment. Well, I got to researching that even further. Prior to the Battle of Vicksburg, siege of Vicksburg, the 50th Pennsylvania was assigned to what they call the Army of the Ohio. Well, if you look at the map...
now we're talking my area of familiarity there.
Correct. And if you look at most of the maps of the siege of Vicksburg, you will find where it shows like the Ohio regiments and all that. And actually the Pennsylvania, this 50th Pennsylvania, was assigned to the Army of the Ohio. Well, I got to doing some more research on it as where they were, the location they were at the battle was Haynes Bluff, which Haynes Bluff, it covers several acres.
Right.
Well, basically where we were was actually up on a bluff. And it was originally a Confederate location. And of course, they chased the Confederates out. And that was one thing I was really surprised that we didn't really find any maybe Confederate buttons or anything. That was really surprising to me.
Right.
But yeah, that's where they actually came from. Now, I'm trying to do some more research. I've got a couple of links in the Library of Congress, and I'm going to do some more research, and I'll post it when I find more information on it, and post it on the MISS+LOU Relic Krewe and also the on-site sound. But it was exciting to find it. Like I said, got them home, and of course I just kind of field cleaned them real carefully there. Then when I got them home, of course I soaked them in some olive oil, and then with a toothpick, it took me about an hour and a half to clean them both because they were just so delicate, the ringlets and all that. So
right, that's another thing. It would take a while. They are delicate pieces.
Yeah, especially the ringlets. I didn't know at the time, but when of course, both of them had 50 on them, which stood for the 50th Pennsylvania. But on the back, once I got to cleaning them, they actually had a pair of cross sabers, Lincoln's head on there, and then a log with an axe in it, which I'm thinking, Yeah, well, I kept thinking, what's that? And then I got thinking, well, Lincoln, it was portrayed as just a hard-working, like, farmer, and he split fence rails and all that, and that's where the axe and the log came from.
Right.
But originally, because you could see a little bit left over, but there was some gold gild, so they actually had gold gild on them. But there's just hardly any left, just only around that the sabers on the back is where I found that gold gild.
Right, but still very nice pieces to find, very commendable and respectable finds, and I'm sure probably your favorite find of the hunt.
Yeah, it was, but the thing was, you know, it was a unique find amongst everybody else found. But for me, it was enjoyable finding all that. But once we got Sunday afternoon, we got back, and everybody showed their finds. The little ladder badges didn't really stick out to me as far as, hey, look what I found.
Right.
It was the things everybody found. To me, it was just so amazing what everybody found, and that probably had to be just as enjoyable as finding ladder badges is coming back and to see what everybody else found.
Oh, that absolutely! Just to see all the history displayed there like that in a big group of finds.
Yeah, it is. It was just awesome. I mean, what everybody found, that to me was, of course, one of the highlights of the not only the highlights of the dig of the hunt. It wasn't just that; it was just the camaraderie. And like I say, thank you, John and Kevin. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome putting this thing together. That had to be number one on the list, above finding ladder badges, because wouldn't never found them if it wasn't been for John and Kevin.
Right, and I already know Kenny's sentiment on it, and it sounds like you would probably be pretty much in that same area as the way it sounds. Even if you guys hadn't found anything, you still had all sorts of memories. It was still a good time, and you would still definitely do it again if the opportunity arose.
You're right, Josh. It's like Kenny said when we were up there, and it wouldn't have been Kenny, it could have been John, it could have been anybody, but just to be there and find something and have that find to share with another person, or that person find something and share it with you. It was like you actually found it. Even though that person found it, you actually had the chance to be there, to see it dug out of the ground. So that's probably, to me, one of the biggest things. I know, like when John found that shell today, and I'm not kind of get off the deal, but anyway, I had to give him a call just to say, hey, man, congrats, that's awesome. I mean, that's...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was a nice find, definitely.
But, Josh, Chris is being very... he's not telling the truth. The ladder badges were the find of the hunt. He's being very modest about it. He could say that, whatever he wants about everybody else's finds are great. He had the best find, period. And that's not just me saying it. Everybody there said, Mr. Chris has a find of the hunt.
Well, Thank you, guys. But like I say, I still, I mean, they were the unique find to me of the hunt. But there again, like I say, everybody's finds were fantastic. I mean, I love it.
Now, what about you, John? What was your memorable find?
My most memorable find was, I don't know. I do know. My most memorable find was just the entire hunt, man. It was unforgettable and amazing.
Good answer. I like that answer. That answer.
That was the find of a lifetime right there. I mean,
there you go. What about you, Kevin?
Well, I didn't find but one button, and that's special to me. But what I found was, 8 other guys that had a blast. We had so much fun. It was like being back in junior high again, hanging out with your buddies. It wasn't. We didn't try to be proper. We didn't try to act like we were all grown-ups. I mean, literally, when we got together, it was like a bunch of kids. I mean, we acted very childish, and it was a lot of fun. Oh, yeah, if you can act like a child around a bunch of other people acting like a child, I mean, you can't get any better than that, because that's how comfortable we felt. I mean, literally, the only person I'd ever met in person, of course, was Digging Deep South, L.A. Check him out on YouTube. And L.A. Gold. Check him out on YouTube. I'd hung out with them before, but the rest of the guys I just talked to. That's it. And it was amazing how when we got together, how we could all act that childish and that stupid and that goofy, and we all just fell in line with it. I mean, going to
like
a restaurant.
Everybody got along like you've known each other for years.
Exactly. Yeah. We went to a restaurant, and it was almost embarrassing. The whole table was just a table full of idiots. I mean, we were all joking with the wait staff, and, I'm sure when we left, they said, thank God they're out of here. Because, I mean, we had a blast. And it was, while we were eating, we had fun eating. We had fun joking around while we were eating and, taking pictures of each other and doing videos and talking about how we're sitting next to Dirt Bandit or, hey, I'm next to LA Gold. It was that much fun. You can't trade it for nothing in the world. I mean, it was a one-time, it was a lifetime experience all wrapped up in 2 days. And I'm telling you, I think people had more fun hanging out in the hotel room and eating together than hunting. I just think we all had more fun hanging out.
Right. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. I would have loved to have been sitting right there myself. Speaking of fun, one of you guys got a piece of paper and a pen?
Find one. Let's see. I got a pen.
All right. Well, let's see how this rolls. We'll try this. This is a little different. I'm going to go ahead and open the lines here. We'll take the first 10 callers and do a random draw. We're going to give away 2 separate mini balls recovered from the Vicksburg hunt, courtesy of the MISS+LOU Relic Crew. And here come the callers, so get your pen ready, John. Hold on. John, put Bill down, Ohio Relic Hunter, for number 1. Looks like we've got Swansea chiming in here. We'll make him number 2, and I'm still showing another number on here. Who do we have, caller?
Hey, Josh, it's Greg Swanson.
Okay. All right. Greg Swanson. We'll put him in for number 3.
Glad to hear you're back on. I really love the show.
Well, thank you. Sorry for that little hiccup there, but I think we're back and rolling good. So we've got Bill, we've got Swansea, and we've got you, Greg.
All right. I'll keep listening, Greg. Thanks a lot.
All right. You got those wrote down, John? All right. Let's see. Who else do we have on here?
Bob from Oswego.
What was that?
Bob from Oswego.
Bob from Oswego? Oswego.
Correct.
Okay. All right. What's that make for us, Kevin? 5? 4? Okay, we need 6 more callers, folks. 6 more for the entry for the mini balls. We'll give it a few more minutes. If we don't get 6 more, we'll go with 5. Real piece of history there, and they are donated by the MISS+LOU Relic Crew. So give us a shout, folks. 419-549-5744.
These are actual bullets from the siege of Vicksburg, not from somewhere in the other part of town. I mean, we were literally a foot from the battlefield.
Right.
The federal we were actually on the battlefield, but they couldn't.
Go ahead, caller.
This is Charlie from Wesson.
Charlie from Weston?
Wesson.
Okay, thanks for the call. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, you got Suki here. I'm just trying to get in on the draw.
Okay, Suki. So that makes 6 for us now, Kevin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 4 more callers. 419-549-5744. 4 more callers. 419-549-5744. We'll see what happens. If we don't get them here in just a minute or so, we'll just go with the 6 we've got and get that done so we can get out of here. It sounds like you guys definitely had a great time with the hunt, and there were some very nice finds made. Of course.
Well, I'm just glad the radio show's back up and running. I'm glad that you worked out all the kinks and found the problem. Just glad it's back on.
Right. Of course, speaking of nice finds, I guess we'll give it a minute and see if we can get those other 4 callers for the entry. But while we're doing that, maybe John wants to say a little something about his find today.
Oh, well, yeah, I'd love to say something about it. I'm still kind of screaming inside about it. On the site that I've hunted many, many times, and I found something I've never found before today. I found quite a few pieces of them, but never found an entire artillery shell. And on my first intact artillery shell today is a Confederate shell. I'm not sure exactly what kind yet. It's definitely Confederate. Nothing else it could be from the site that I found it at. So I ended up finding one other really nice find today. I found I believe, an 1844 half dime as well. But that artillery shell was probably going to be my find of the year.
Right.
Ready for 2015.
You have definitely started the year off with a bang. You have hit the ground running, sir.
I was really excited about it, man. I wish I could have got it all on film of my excitement when I first realized what I had. I'd have been the laughing stock of the country.
Right, but hey.
John, what machine are you using, and what did it ring up?
I was running the XT Deus, and it rang up a 57 consistently in the 18 kilohertz mode.
And that was at 15 inches, you say?
Yeah, between 12 and 15 inches, I would say, yeah, something like that.
With the...
Didn't measure it, but yeah.
What, with the 9 or 11 inch?
With the 11 inch.
Awesome. Good find. Good find.
Yeah, I was stoked. I can't wait to find out what kind it was either.
Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing a picture of that.
Oh yeah, I'll post it on Beyond Sight and Film. As soon as the show's over with, I'll post it.
All right. Kevin, what is our list of entries?
You want me to name them?
Yeah.
So we have Bill, the Ohio Relic Hunter, Swansea, Greg Swanson, Mr. Bob, Charlie from Wesson.
Okay. 419-549-5744, folks. We could use 4 more entries, or we're fixing to roll with it. It's great that the MISS+LOU Relic Crew donated these finds that were recovered from Vicksburg. And if we go with 6, we go with 6. But there'll be 2 separate winners. Each one receives a mini ball from Vicksburg. Regular piece of Civil War history. And I'm not seeing anybody, so we'll go ahead and roll with it. I'm going to go to random.org and generate. Okay, so let's see. First one is number 2.
That's Swansea.
Okay, Swansea wins one of the mini balls. We'll generate again. And we have number 4.
That's Bob from Oswego.
Okay, Bob from Oswego. If you're still listening, as soon as the music ends, call the show number back so that we can get your address and get that mini ball shipped out to you. Or if you're on my friends list on Facebook, drop me a private message and let me know. Swansea, you know how to find me. Get me your address and we'll get that mini ball out to you. Thanks for those who did call in for the giveaway. It was very, very nice of the MISS+LOU Relic Crew to donate those. And thanks to the MISS+LOU Relic Crew, John Deville, Kevin Strahan, Kenny Moore, and Chris Engel for taking the time to sit down with us tonight and do this special broadcast of the Vicksburg Hunt. I'm sure it was a good time for everybody. There was a lot of camaraderie, a lot of fellowship amongst friends, and some very nice finds made with, what was it, I believe 60-some bullets and 30-some buttons recovered, to name just some of the finds.
Yes, sir.
That is awesome. Any parting words before we cut out of here, guys?
Get out and dig.
That's right.
Well, from Kevin Strahan, thanks for listening to Beyond Sight and Sound, and for the regular people that have listened every week. Thanks for sticking in there with Josh while he was having his technical difficulties, and tell everybody about the show. The more people, the better. If he can get more people on the show, it just makes the show better. You have more guests, and this is something we all need to stand up and support. And Beyond Sight and Sound Facebook page, of course, join that and keep up with the shows and what Josh is going to have from week to week. And I'm glad I can say Josh is a friend. This is my number one show I listen to. I tell everybody this is my soap opera that I watch. It's my general hospital. So just thanks for listening and hanging in there, and try to get as many people to listen as possible, because the more people you get involved with this, the better you are, because you're going to meet new people, you're going to have new hunting grounds, and you're going to have more friends. So just tell everybody about the show and how great Josh is.
And look at all the friends we've made and the people that we've helped and all of that. Anything from you, Chris?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Josh, for giving us, the listeners, the opportunity to call in, to listen to great shows, to your guests that you put on there. It's so exciting to me, and it's a learning experience. It seems like I learn something every time I'm on the show from the guests you have and all. It's just, and the stories they tell. It's just, you know, where can you find better, basically, education in the world than right here?
Right. Well, I certainly appreciate that. And when I'm not out hunting for treasure, I'm out hunting for guests. We're always trying to bring good guest content and information to the listeners, because after all, it is radio for you, the listener. And we appreciate everyone tuning in. If you'd like to be a guest on the show sometime, a good topic you'd like to hear covered, drop me a line. Let me know. I'm not hard to find. For myself, Kenny Moore, Chris Engel, John Deville, L.A. Gold, Kevin Strahan, and all the other hunters that attended the Vicksburg MISS+LOU Relic Krewe group hunt, thank you for tuning in and listening, and your continued support when we were dealing with the massive glitches that arose that we have finally dealt with and overcome. If you enjoyed the show, by all means, like, rate the channel, drop me a comment. Let me know if you want to be on. We'll set something up. But we got to roll, folks. Enjoy Super Bowl tomorrow. We'll see ya.